The Miami Hurricanes proved they belong in the biggest stage in college football. But here's why Miami ultimately didn't have enough for Indiana and what happens next.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That was a great football game. I know my Miami brethren don't necessarily want to hear that. It's not an easy thing for me to say, but that was a great game. Miami had their opportunities to win despite going up against what ultimately turned out to be a college football juggernaut and a team that went 16-0. I'm not letting the Hurricanes off the hook because, again, Miami had chances to win that football game, but I'm also appreciative of how far Miami has come. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On this episode, we will have some perspective for the process. I just got off the phone with former Miami Hurricanes great Kelvin Harris, and he mentioned, this is the beginning. This is not the end. We will give out game balls for some really good performers on the Miami side who kept the Hurricanes in that game until literally the final 44 seconds of it. Let's talk about why Miami did come up short, because you think about the keys to the game that we lay down beforehand, Miami didn't execute nearly enough of those. First, you've got to give credit to the Hoosiers and Mr. Heisman, Fernando Mendoza. Indiana beating Miami 27-21 on Monday night. The Heisman Trophy winner showed you some Heisman moments, especially on that drive, which ultimately turned out to be the game-winning drive that put the Hoosiers up 24-14. Mendoza with two massive fourth down conversions on that drive, a 4th and 5, and then the 4th and 4, where Mendoza on the quarterback draw ran his way in from 12 yards out. Here's post-game insight on that play from Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports and what Miami was seeing and looking at on that play when Mendoza got into the end zone. DC Corey Heatherman, per Marcello, says that they knew the quarterback draw was coming on Mendoza's 4th and 5 touchdown run. He said, we knew what the play was. It wasn't a secret, but the issue was trouble getting a check call to players. Linebacker Wesley Basaint had it, then to 3 technique, but he didn't end up getting the call in time in the end, and that led to the Indiana touchdown that even though Miami was able to answer it with a touchdown of their own, they were down 10 at that time. Indiana was able to add the field goal, and Miami was unable to put together a game-winning drive after that. So you saw flashes from Mr. Heisman, but, I wanted to start with that to give the Hoosiers credit, but if you're going to look at the factors as to why Miami lost that game, I probably could have and should have started with special teams. Special teams were killer on Monday night for Miami. In a game that the Hurricanes lose by 6 points, a blocked punt for a touchdown gave Indiana 7 points. And you watch that play, you watch the replay. Unfortunately, number 87, tight end Alex Bauman, whiffed on the block that was needed to protect your punter and avoid that blocked punt, and that was very costly. Miami also had a missed field goal from long range but makeable range of 50 yards. Carter Davis had plenty of leg from 50, but he doinked it off the right upright, and that was a crucial moment. I mean, Miami at that point hadn't scored their first points of the game yet. They were down 10-0 late in the second quarter. It was, a little bit of a lot of second guessing on the way that drive played out. Because remember, Miami went for and got a 4th down in their own territory. And then when they got down to field goal range, instead of going for another 4th down to either go for a touchdown or get closer for the field goal, Miami decided to run clock off and then attempt the field goal and missed it. So again, there was certainly a lot of second guessing on Mario Cristobal and the clock management and stuff. But ultimately, had you made that makeable field goal 10-3 at that point, is a much different football game than 10-0. And, the Hurricanes, if not for the missed field goal and especially the blocked punt, we'd be celebrating a national championship today. That's not taking anything away from Indiana. We'll talk about that. Another huge factor in this one, folks, Miami could not dictate the pace of play or the time of possession. Hurricanes only ran 53 plays compared to Indiana's 72. The factor there, Miami had a ghastly day on third down. Indiana's defense is so organized, they don't give you any space. The Hurricanes only converted 3 third downs in 11 tries, 3 for 11. Hoosiers' defense is the real deal. They tackle well, they swarm, they give you zero space. Miami had a couple of those 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s that's usually automatic. Your offensive line's going to get that push, and Indiana was swarming right there. Miami did have some big conversions, but also some big non-conversions on short yardage. The Hoosiers were ready for it. Miami always, as we know, wants to win the time of possession like they did against Ole Miss, and you want to keep the other team's offense off the field. I mentioned Indiana running 72 plays to Miami's 53. Well, Miami only had the football for 23 minutes and 36 seconds compared to Indiana's 36 and a half minutes of time of possession. That's not going to get the job done. And then, of course, as we talked about all throughout the week, folks, the Hoosiers will not beat themselves. Hadn't happened up until last night, and it didn't happen last night. That you have to take the football away from them because they're not going to give it to you. Miami loses the turnover margin. You don't beat the Hoosiers doing that. Miami had the one interception at the end of the game. Carson Beck, we'll talk about that. Carson Beck to Keelan Marion, the miscommunication. Miami didn't have any takeaways. So you don't lose the turnover margin and expect to beat the Hoosiers. And for Miami, there were also penalties. 7 penalties for over 60 yards compared to 5 penalties for just 38 yards for the Hoosiers. Can't beat yourselves because Indiana won't beat themselves. All right, let's talk about the final play. Because, of course, that one is the lasting memory. That one is the one that everyone was asking Carson Beck about, and Mario Cristobal and offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson after the game. So Miami, despite all the things that they didn't win about this football game, third down, turnovers, penalties, execution, special teams, despite all of that, Miami was driving in Indiana territory, down 6, with a chance for the game-winning drive with just under 2 minutes. Like, that was still a thing, despite all the issues. And on the play where Carson threw an interception, yeah, it looked like he got greedy there. Going for a touchdown from Indiana's 41-yard line with 44 seconds left on the clock. There was plenty of time. There were more opportunities to be had. And how ironic, the guy who gets the interception to seal it for the Hoosiers was Jamari Sharp. He's not only a Miami native, but he's the nephew of former Hurricane Glenn Sharp, the one who came up, with the bogus pass interference call against Ohio State. But full circle, where his nephew, Jamari Sharp, is the one that seals the win against Miami. I can only laugh because it's so painful, the irony there. I give credit to Keelan Marion, who is the intended receiver on that play, because there's always more to a failed play than what we actually see, right? Every interception, you either assume quarterback made a terrible throw or a terrible read. There's usually more context to it than that. Keelan Marion came out and he repeatedly said, it's definitely my mistake and it's all on me. He mentioned a miscommunication on the read, did the intended receiver. He was unaware that Carson Beck had even released the pass at that time. Quote, I didn't even know he had thrown the football. He says, I've got to look for the ball and make that play for him. Now, I'm not putting the blame entirely on Keelan, even if he's putting it on himself. I think there's obviously, for every failed play, there's blame to go around, but it's worth pointing out that was more than just on one person. It wasn't just on the play call from the offensive coordinator. It wasn't just on the quarterback. It probably wasn't just on the receiver, but there are a lot of things that have to go wrong when you're throwing a game-sealing interception at that point. I want to talk about the positives when we come back. Not only the positives in that game, because there were obviously a few, right? A lot of folks thought Miami would go out there and get steamrolled, same way Indiana had steamrolled Oregon and steamrolled Alabama to get to that point. The Hurricanes showed a lot of fight. There were some standout performers who almost single-handedly at times kept the Hurricanes in that football game. You want to keep it locked right here. We're in pain, but we're not daunted. Alex Donno on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. We're only getting started. Folks, I know college football season has come to a close. We've got NBA basketball, college basketball with our Canes, with our Miami Heat. We got Florida Panthers season in full swing. Folks, whether you're going out there for the parties, the tailgates, the packed arenas, being right there in the middle of all of it, actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets, college basketball, NBA, and all the experiences that come with it in just a few taps. Folks, I love how on Game Time you see a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you'll know exactly what you're getting. Folks, the zone deals stand out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. And knowing that the prices include all the fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And for the everydayers, I appreciate all of you who are members of the Everydayer Club. And if you want to join, hit that all access tier. As we go into off-season mode, we'll be talking about more transfer moves. Could be getting a quarterback in the very near future. We'll talk about off-season practices, recruiting, all that good stuff. LockedOnCanes.supercast.com is where you join the Everydayer Club. You get exclusive one-on-one texting with me. You get exclusive episodes called the Canes Colada that are just for the all-access members, newsletters, Discord access, LockedOnCanes.supercast.com. Now, the Hurricanes, despite coming up short on the biggest stage, just short, I might add, Miami did last night as they've done all season long, and that's fight. I was wrong about the Hurricanes winning the football game, obviously, but I was right about one thing. This team does not get blown out. You saw plenty of those predictions pregame ranging from Indiana by 17, Indiana by 24, Hoosiers by 30. You saw a lot of those around the country. I tried to remind you, Miami Hurricanes have not lost a game by more than 7 points since November 4th of 2023. I'm proud of these Canes for, despite unfortunately making too many mistakes, I'm proud of these guys for going toe-to-toe with the Hoosiers for 60 minutes. Indiana went up by 10 points a couple of times in the game, but Miami always, when they were down 2 scores, would answer with a touchdown drive to get right back in it. My first game ball for this one goes to Mark Fletcher Jr., star running back. So Fletch is going up against an Indiana defense that only allows 75 team rushing yards per game, top 2 rushing defense in the country. Fletcher is able to rack up 112 yards on the ground, and he was right there at about his postseason average. Fletcher came into this one averaging 6.8 yards per carry in the playoffs. He goes off for 6.6. Excuse me. I'm still trying to get my voice back from last night. He gets 6.6 yards per carry against the best defense he's faced all year. Fletcher scored 2 touchdowns in the game, including the 57-yarder that he broke off to the right side, which is his new career long, by the way. That put Miami on the board for the first time to make it Indiana 10-7. That was a huge play there, and that made it a football game, right? When Indiana was down, up 10-0, and it looked like Miami couldn't move an inch on that defense, Fletch breaks off that run, and it was game on, and Miami was competitive the rest of the way. And I want to say something else about Fletch. You know, if you've been on social media, for the past, 12 hours, whatever, everyone on the internet is sharing that clip of Fletcher swinging at an Indiana player after the game. And of course, you get the usual comments out there from the bots and the Miami haters like, classless. That's what Miami's all about. These are the guys that make up a Miami football team. Those of you who know that Mark Fletcher is the farthest thing from classless, maybe the classiest player I have ever covered at the college or pro level. Fletcher is a truly special human being. So I was told after the game, and then I also saw this shared by Mike Rumpf from Miami's coaching staff and former national championship player, that the reason why Mark Fletcher took a swing at that dude was that player allegedly made a comment about Mark's deceased father, Big Mark. So I'm sorry, if you do that, you're lucky he only took one swing at you. That is inexcusable provocation to bring up a dead parent as a way to try and provoke somebody. Mark Fletcher, he's been on this show before. You guys know he is the kindest player on this team, which is saying something because there are a lot of really good dudes in that locker room. If Mark Fletcher is swinging at you, it's you, not him. You're the problem, not Mark Fletcher. So I want those nonsense narratives to absolutely die, because if you make a comment about Mark's father, what do you expect? I mean, for as much self-control as that amazing Mark Fletcher Jr. has, there's only so much he can take before he's going to swing at you. He gets a game ball. Malachi Toney, he gets a game ball. Now, in case you didn't notice, the amount of space that Indiana defensive backs were giving to Miami receivers could only be measured in centimeters, not in feet or in yards. There was no space. Indiana's D was so good. And yet, Malachi Toney was able to catch 10 balls for 122 yards, including a 22-yard touchdown. It was a touch pass that kind of felt like a run, but it was officially a pass. Whatever it was a touchdown. And that made it 24-21 Indiana. That was a huge touchdown, clutch one that Malachi scored to give Miami a chance to win that football game. That was right before Miami's D held the Hoosiers to a field goal down 6. The Hurricanes had their chance for a walk-off TD, and you had that chance thanks to Malachi Toney getting his touchdown and getting the game within a score. And I can't emphasize it enough. Again, going up against a spectacular Indiana defense, to have 10 catches for 122 yards and a touchdown against those guys. Malachi Toney is a gamer. He's only a true freshman. It's scary how good this young man is going to be for the next couple of years in orange and green. You got to give game balls, as we've done for most of the year, to Akheem Mesidor and Rueben Bane. That duo were at times, a lot of times, able to get to Mendoza and make him uncomfortable. Fernando Mendoza, as we mentioned, he was able to create some signature moments, right? He had the heroic drive that will be, unfortunately for us, remembered forever. He had that, yes. But Miami gave Mendoza a tougher time than any other opponent he faced all year. Hurricanes pressured him pretty good, 32.3% of his dropbacks. Mesidor had 2 sacks in the game. Bane had 1, and Mesidor had a team-high 4 quarterback pressures. And these were in clutch moments, folks, because in that third quarter, when Miami was down 10-0 and defensive stops were non-negotiable, Miami got a couple of key defensive stops to play complementary football to give their offense a chance. Mesidor and Bane always had a lot to do with that. And I also want to give a shout out to OJ Frederic. I know OJ couldn't finish the game, and obviously, he had some moments where the coverage was a little bit off. He was giving up a lot of space. Indiana made plays, but I just want you to know how much pain that young man was playing through, and he couldn't finish the game. But for him to give it a go, laid everything on the line, OJ. And I'm going to appreciate your contributions to this team, because Frederic has been banged up throughout the playoffs, and he's been giving it a go every single game. He couldn't finish the Ole Miss game, couldn't play every down on this game, but you talk about putting your body on the line to try to win a championship, and of course has been really good for Miami the last couple of years. OJ Frederic deserves our appreciation. Let's talk perspective and let's talk transfer portal when we come back because, folks, I know it's the end of the season, but it's not the end of the road. So with the way Mario Cristobal has been accumulating talent here and with the way this culture has been overhauled, I haven't wanted to use the B word back until Miami wins their 6th national championship. But whether you use that specific word or not, the Miami Hurricanes have arrived. Like they are on this national stage and they're not going away. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Thank you again for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And I'm honored to be a part of this awesome #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every Miami Hurricane fan, every player, current and former and future, every coach, every staffer, every supporter of this university should keep their heads held high. I know a lot of us, myself included, we're doing plenty of second guessing today. Man, how did our special teams fail us? What do we need to do to revamp the special teams coaching staff? Was the offensive play calling good enough? Why did we look out of sync and out of rhythm at times? What could this guy, that guy, and the other have done to erase that 6-point deficit and win that football game? Second guessing is fine, especially when you're that close to winning a championship. And I think perspective is also important. Mario Cristobal has returned the U national prominence. Like he has shown you that our team belongs on the biggest national stage yet again. You belonged on that field with Indiana. Kudos to, I know that there were plenty of trolls on social media, but there are a lot of classy Indiana fans who were in my mentions and in my comments giving their respect to Miami. And it's mutual. I have the utmost respect for Indiana and what Curt Cignetti has accomplished there. So I appreciate all the classy fans out there. The setback from Monday night does not change the journey. That was a detour. That was not the final destination, losing that game. The destination is still on your GPS, ready to be reached. If you compare the talent and the culture of this team right now to what it was 4 years ago when and right before Mario Cristobal took over, it's night and day. Before Cristobal came in, Miami at that time was in that perpetual 7-5, 6-6, maybe 5-7 type of purgatory. And at that exact moment when Cristobal's plane landed, Miami had just one player about to get drafted to the NFL in the 7th round. You fast forward 4 seasons. The team wins 13 games for the first time in program history. That had never happened before. And you're about to have possibly a dozen players drafted. You might even have 3 first-round picks. Rueben Bane is a surefire first-round pick, likely top 10. Francis Mauigoa on the offensive line, probably a top 15 pick. Those are consensus first-rounders. Akheem Mesidor might very well end up in the first round, possibly late first round. Can you imagine having 3 first-rounders compared to where this program has been? The table's going to be well set for next season. You're losing some important players. When I was talking about Mark Fletcher Jr. earlier, I should have mentioned he has doubled and tripled down on his commitment to come back for his senior season. Fletcher's going to be back next year, and he is going to be one of the most dangerous running backs in the entire country. He's always been good for the last 3 seasons, but the way Fletcher's been able to up his game in the playoffs and become Fletcher, out of all these college football playoff games, 11 games were played in the CFP. Mark Fletcher Jr. was the leader nationally in yards from scrimmage in the college football playoff. He did that. The most prolific skill position player in the college football playoff. He doesn't have to come back next year, but he is. You're getting Malachi Toney back and all the potential. Potential, he's already here, but potential to get even better. Standouts like Marquise Lightfoot, Armando Blunt, who I love on that defensive line, Xavier Lucas, O.J. Frederic, Zechariah Poyser back in the defensive secondary. You've got another top 10 recruiting class that's on the way in with some guys who are going to be ready to play right away. Plus, we're going to be monitoring this for the next day or two for sure. Miami is widely projected to land one of the top transfer portal quarterbacks, Darian Mensah from Duke. That could happen in the coming hours or the coming day. So we'll keep our eyes on that. A huge part of being great is sometimes you have to take your painful L's and then bounce back and use those as teachable moments. Good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, Rudy Tamarchio, texted me something this morning. He pointed out that, not only does Miami have, as we all know, 5 national championship wins, this team historically has also lost in 5 national championship games, or games that would have won them the national championship. So they've fought through adversity before, right? They had to lose 4 natties before they could win 5. You just lost a 5th national championship game. Eventually, you're going to get number 6, okay? And yeah, let's hope that experience from Monday night was a learning moment, and it's part of the process, and it's not the destination. Locked On Florida Panthers host and friend of mine, Armando Velez, he made a great point that this year's Miami Hurricanes team reminds him of the Florida Panthers team from a few years ago that lost in the Stanley Cup Finals, but they got back there the next 2 seasons and they won the whole thing. So again, I'm not guaranteeing Miami wins the next 2 national championships, but I think there are some similarities in a team that, gets to that stage, and now the next time they get there, they can finish the job, that it's part of the process, part of the experience. So thank you, Coach Mario Cristobal. Thank you, President Joe Echeverria. Thank you to everyone in Miami's administration for investing your time, your effort, your blood, your sweat, your tears. There have been plenty of all of those things. Thank you for investing all of that into bringing Miami back into moments like these. As painful as it is to lose a national championship game, I'd much rather be shedding tears over a national title game loss than be in the shoes of another team in the state that went 5-7 and didn't even get to any form of postseason. Give me this spot. If I have to lose in a natty game, as much as that sucks, as much as that tears away at your soul, I would rather get to that moment and lose than not get anywhere close to that. So thank you, Mario Cristobal. But the next time we get there, let's win the whole thing. And thank you to the everydayers. With the season being over, it doesn't mean Locked On Canes is over. We attack the offseason with so much vigor. And it's not just the offseason. We'll be talking football, but we'll also be talking a lot more basketball now that football season, at least the games, are in the rear view. But we'll be talking transfer portal in football, recruiting. Spring practice is going to be here before you know it, because when you play until late January, you're pretty close to spring football starting out. We'll talk some baseball throughout this season. So shout out to the everydayers. And again, make sure you check out the Everydayer Club and join that all-access tier for exclusive shows and one-on-one texting access. You can click the link in the show notes below or go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com. And we'll talk to you all next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.